Welcome, everyone. You are joining the third session of the Colorado Restaurant and Bar Show Educational Series. Let's take this outside. Creative solutions to winter outdoor dining. We're going to give it just a moment here for everybody to join, and then we'll kick it off with Sonia Riggs, the President and CEO of the Colorado Restaurant Association. So we'll give it just 1 minute here. All right, Sonia, if you'd like to take it from here.
Thank you, Sally Ann. I really appreciate you all joining us today. This is our third session of our 2020 Colorado Restaurant and Bar Show Virtual Education Series. We created this series because we know how challenging the last 6 months or so have been for all of you. And we've heard from a number of folks that you're really wondering what winter is going to look like, how you're going to survive. So that's what this whole series is all about, is really helping you answer that question. In weekly sessions, we'll feature industry experts who will dig into operational best practices to give practical, implementable ideas that you can immediately apply to your own business. Before we begin and dig right into today's topic, I'd like to take a moment to thank our program partners. They are Pinnacle Assurance, NCR, Messner Reeves, Henry and Horn, United Healthcare, and PepsiCo. Joining us today is Adam Zarrin, Policy Advisor to Governor Polis, who will discuss the state's indoor-outdoor guidelines. Mike Brockway, a tenting and heating expert, who will talk through considerations and logistics of enclosing your spaces. And Phil Armstrong, who will detail his personal plan for winter outdoor dining at his mountain restaurants. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A function in the bottom menu of your Zoom window. We will be posting the recording of the full discussion in about 24 hours in the CRB Show Educational Series event app. Please let me add that over the next couple of weeks of this series, we'll cover a number of additional topics, including additional revenue streams, social media, takeout and delivery, labor law, and more. You're welcome to join us for just one session, for multiple sessions, or for all of them, really whatever works for all of you. You can sign up for the series on Event Cadence, and stay tuned for more details as we're continuing to evolve these additional educational programming sessions. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Adam to get us started. Adam?
Hey, thank you, Sonia, and thanks to everyone for joining us today again. My name's Adam Zarrin. I'm a policy advisor to Governor Jared Polis. I think a good place to always start these conversations about COVID and how we're planning for the winter is just to get a sense of where we're at right now with data. And actually, if I'm smart enough, I'll drop in a link of this kind of quick presentation in the chat for everyone if they're willing or interested in looking at it. So we have seen some surges in cases around holidays, and where we are worried about a winter surge, right? We're seeing right now, week to week cases reported about 63%, 22%, and then a decrease in the last week, a number of cases. As you can expect, though, a lot of that right now is being driven by cases amongst 18 and 25-year-olds, which is from, as you can imagine, college campuses, where we've seen in that age group, 3 weeks ago, an 85% spike in the number of cases. So when we look broadly across the entire state and we exclude 18, 25-year-olds, we've actually hit a plateau of sorts and are kind of holding steady. And, when we look at projections for daily hospital admissions going into this fall and winter, we are kind of seeing a continued increase. But what I think is the major takeaway here is we are doing relatively well. It's very much because of you and other operators' work in trying to make sure that your spaces are safe, both for guests and employees. We're not, as the governor said, we're only going to get through this together. and everyone's been a really great partner. So, you know, on that fifth slide as well, is we have issued just this past week temporary outdoor structures guidance for restaurants and events. And in there, you'll see both how we are classifying what an outdoor and indoor structure looks like, and then, you know, what are kind of the capacity allowances. Again, the capacity allowances are really driven by what is in the dial framework that we released, I want to say that's 3 weeks ago. Granted, time seems to just feel like 1 month since March right now, but that's besides the point. And I think the short and dirty on what is indoor and outdoor, you know, if you got 4 walls with a ceiling or 3 closed walls and there's one side open, the Department of Public Health and Environment is considering that an indoor setting, and everything else is an outdoor setting. So, you know, we hope that those are helpful. We are, of course, very interested in innovative practices and ways that we can elevate those across the state that are best practices. And we want to continue to learn and get this right. And, you know, we're working with the Colorado Restaurant Association and Sonia on ways to, you know, mitigate the effects this winter. We know this is going to be very difficult. It's been difficult for everybody, but we are going to get through this. And again, the bottom line here is just outdoors is safer than indoor spaces, and we want to try to make sure you guys can do that. So yeah, that was it, short and sweet, but I'll stick around, of course, for questions. Toss it back to you.
Thank you, Adam. I just want to add for the people that are participating with us today is just, it's going to be really important to make sure that you check, obviously, with all of your local you know, permitting processes that are required, and your local, you know, building officials and your local government, basically, on what specifically the logistics and the allowances are going to look like in your community. I don't mean to be so obvious, but I do want to let you know that we are trying to gather that information to help you, either to continue to provide links, which we've been doing, but to provide that information as you have it. So as you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to us at info@corestaurant.org. And if there's something that's you need help with and you're struggling, let us know, and we'll help reach out to the appropriate folks as far as that goes. So I think with that, are we turning it over to Mike next?
Correct.
Great, thank you. Mike, go ahead.
All right, thanks for that. Let me get my PowerPoint up. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
All right. Again, my name is Mike. I am one of the owners of Denver Tent and Event Rentals. Right now, we're currently helping a lot of restaurants discuss and implement outdoor dining solutions. I'm also one of the co-founders of Peak Event Partners, which is essentially a collaboration of local rental companies. With that, together, we're able to cover the entire state. We also have partners as far as New York and Colorado. New York and Florida. Jumping right into things, I have about 10 slides, so I'm going to kind of fly through this, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. Real quick agenda. First, we'll talk about some factors to consider, questions to keep in mind as you're thinking about adding outdoor dining space. Various 10 options. That's where we become experts. Feel free to reach out to us or your local event rental company if you're thinking about this, to see if it's a feasible option for you. And then we'll make a suggestion. Really briefly, structured tents are the best way to go if you're looking to have a tent out for 6 months in heavy wind conditions, heavy snow conditions in the state of Colorado. We'll talk a little bit about the solutions for heavy snow on top of that, a little bit about permitting and safety, and then a little bit about local expansion guidelines. But again, you want to refer to your local fire department, local city officials. We cover a lot of different areas, and we're not experts on every single area, but we do help our customers through that process and making sure we're doing things right. We have good relationships with most fire departments, and it's really just important to keep your customers and keep everyone safe. Again, at a high level, some factors to consider. Big question we ask everyone is, hey, how long will this tent be used? As an example, City of Denver actually has, as many of you may know, extended their outdoor dining program through October of 2021. So a lot of these tents or outdoor dining spaces will be up for up to 12 months in this case. So for this, you really want to invest or put some time and energy into a worthwhile solution. Kind of comes back to you get what you pay for. We have all options across the board, but we are suggesting that restaurants go with a heavier duty option to make sure that they are providing a solid space for their guests over the next 12 months. Big question we've been in discussion with restaurants we're working with is your budget and the revenue per table. People have been utilizing that to come back to a number that they can spend, and then we can try to cater to that, or again, work with your local rental company as well. Another big question is total space available. A lot of times restaurants are working within confined spaces. You not only need tent space for your tents, but you also need some egress doors. You might need space for heaters, things of that nature. So just keep that in mind. Most tents are built in 10-foot increments or sometimes 5-foot increments. Then once you get into structure options, the heavier duty stuff that we're suggesting, those are actually built in meters. But again, just refer to your local event company or the experts, and they'll help you decide what's best for your given area. And then lastly, again, we kind of touched on this, just stay in touch with the local fire department and city officials to make sure you're staying within their standards. Jump right into things, various tent options here. I'm just going to talk about frame tents today. First one you'll see here is your standard frame tent. Some restaurants are using this tent right now. You can even buy these off of Amazon. There's a huge shortage of tents right now just because of the demand across the country, but that's just basic options. Some restaurants are using it for the summer. Next one is a high peak frame tent. These are a little more aesthetically pleasing. You will probably see this, you will see these out right now. Again, another great summer option. But I will say that these first two options are just that, great summer options. We are not suggesting these for a 12-month rental or a 6-month rental or use for most restaurants, especially if you're up in the mountains or you expect to see we expect to see a lot of snow this winter. Last option is called a clear span structure tent. This is what we're suggesting for most restaurants. It's essentially a aluminum building with a vinyl top. A lot of tents, specifically the ones that we're using, are rated up to 115 miles an hour for wind, and they can hold about 10 pounds per square foot of snow. For the most part, you do want to keep snow off of these things, but if that's maybe not the case, or we get a big storm, this is going to be your best option when it comes to that wind and snow we see on a regular basis here. Looking at this one, you can see you can add glass walls, double doors to these tents, so just a lot more options there. Look, if you're looking to customize it for the 12-month period or whatever your case might be. Here are a few more photos of different structured tents, different options we have. You can do the open air concept, no sidewalls. You can add sidewalls. You can get a little fancier, going with a timber track product. But again, a lot of options. We're here to help if anyone needs any assistance with this. Jumping into heavy snowfall. This is everyone's big question. We were asked to kind of address this on this call. First one, get a solid tent. If you can't do that or it's not in your budget, you're just going to have to continue to clear that snow periodically if you're taking the risk there. Other than manually clearing the snow, the next best solution is going to be actually heating that tent. If the tent's enclosed and you're heating that tent, as it snows, the snow will melt and roll off that water roll off the tent, and that will keep your customers happy and everyone safe under the tent. Jumping into those heating options, the number one option we use is forced air for these tents. 99% of the time, most customers are going to utilize forced air. These forced air heaters, they're built specifically for tents or outdoor spaces. They run off either natural gas or propane. And that's going to be the best option for most restaurants. Just to touch on it really quickly, your standard patio mushroom heaters, don't want to go too far into this, but our big message here is just make sure you're not using these in tents or enclosed spaces. Totally avoid that. And then lastly, electric heaters. Probably 1% of our customers will use electric heaters. This is typically due to a restriction around using natural gas or propane or having that on site for whatever reason. The big downside here is these electric heaters require a lot of electricity to run and sufficiently heat a space that's not insulated.
Mike, can I ask a quick question before you move on? Can you go
Yeah.
back? Can you explain why that when you go to the different heaters, why can the mushroom heaters not be used in tents or enclosed spaces? Is it because of health concerns, fire reasons, all of the above?
It's going to be all of the above. There's no ventilation, so that's the biggest factor. And then two, sometimes if they're in a tent, if they're too close to the tent, they might melt the tent, catch something on fire. So just factors there. But the biggest thing is there's no ventilation. You're essentially
For the gas. Okay.
exactly
Got it.
exactly the
Thank
combustion.
you.
And then as you can see for the tent heaters, those are actually set outside. And then we run a duct or a diffuser under the sidewall, or we can get into some custom solutions for a longer term install. And this way you're keeping that combustion outside of the tent. Fire departments, if they're working with you, they're also going to call these kind of things out. So just make sure you get ahead of it. And then speaking of fire departments, regardless of what you're doing, what tent you're using, if you're doing this yourself, if you're going through a rental company, just make sure you have your basic safety equipment in there. Fire extinguishers, if you're going to buy them yourselves, buy the larger ones, have your signage in there, exit signs, no smoking signs, fire extinguisher signs, all items that the fire department's going to look for when they check your tent. Some departments are even requiring illuminated exit signs that have battery backup, just in case the power goes out. Moving into safety, snow and wind. Again, you really do want to use a wind-rated tent in Colorado. That's how you're going to keep, the last thing you want is this tent blowing into the building or worst case scenario, hurting someone. So make sure, regardless of what tent you're using, it actually has a wind rating, and it can maybe potentially hold some snow load. And then on top of that, regardless of how good the tent you're using is, regardless of how strong it is, it does not matter unless you ballast your tents correctly. Internally, we only use concrete ballast, and we put about 10 pounds of concrete per square foot on a tent to make sure that tent's not blowing away. When you add sidewalls to a tent, that kind of increases the amount of concrete you need to use. We totally stay away from water barrels, but you'll see a lot of companies out there using water barrels. Some fire departments will not allow water barrels. And then on top of ballast, the best solution is staking tents. But if you're, in many cases, restaurants are setting these tents up on sidewalks or city streets where they cannot run stakes, or there could be utility lines underneath. But if you are using stakes, we use 40-inch stakes or concrete anchors to ensure your tents are not blowing away, or again, worst case scenario, hurting someone if there's an emergency or storm. And then really briefly, just touching on some local guidelines. We are not experts. We're not an extension of the Department of Health or the CDC, but we can definitely help you through the process if you're thinking about this as an option. The fire department will always ask for your seating charts, your layouts, things of that nature. Also keep in mind how close your tent is to the building, where your propane canisters and your heaters are going to be stored, things of that nature. We're suggesting that regardless of what route you go, you have sidewalls to fully enclose your tent. You can't, at that point, you have to put less people or less tables in your tent, but at least those guests will be comfortable. If it's nice out, you can take your sidewalls off, increase the capacity, depending on what your restrictions are. But just have that as a backup plan in case you do need to heat your tent and keep your guests comfortable. That's pretty much it. Again, my name is Mike. I've included my information here. Also Paul's, he's an expert here, probably even more knowledgeable than I am. So reach out to him with questions as well. His line is his direct extension is there. We've also included some resources at the bottom if you're looking to get in the weeds on some of the restrictions out there.
All right, great. Thank you. Thanks so much, Mike. That's really helpful. We've got some questions coming in, but I know that we've got a lot of time at the end. So folks, just a reminder to ask your questions through the Q&A function on the bottom of the Zoom call, and we'll make sure that we've got plenty of time to get to those at the end. So with that, I think that we will turn it over to Phil.
Perfect. Thanks, Sonia. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
Excellent. Sonia, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Mike, I got to tell you, that was a great presentation. A lot of really useful information there. I'm going to come at it from just a much more of a hospitality and sort of all of us, I think, on this call trying to figure out what we can do to make sure that our guests are happy and having a great experience at our restaurants throughout the winter. From our standpoint, these ideas that we had were certainly not born out of anything that I can take credit for. We were in Aspen a few years ago at the 11 Madison Park pop-up. And as I was being seated, I looked out into this courtyard you see on the slide and saw this just magical yurt village. And I thought, what is this? And I'd never seen anything like it before. And I started asking questions and I was curious. And I thought, wow, what a great application for a mountain community and a winter outdoor dining experience. And then I had sort of filed that idea in the back of my mind as just something that we would revisit when our budgets allowed. And so with the onset of COVID and everyone trying to determine how they were going to maximize outdoor seating, early in June, I started revisiting this concept, and I did some Googling. I found out how to contact the director of engineering at the St. Regis Hotel. He directed me to the person that manufactured these yurts, who is an individual named Richard at campingyurts.com. He is based out of Bend, Oregon. And so I connected with Richard, and I said, gosh, you know, I would love to see about utilizing these winter yurts on our property. What's your lead time? What's the price? And so we worked through that whole process, and we ordered 4 yurts for our RM Steamboat location and 2 for our Breckenridge location. They are going to be set up on our existing outdoor dining spaces. And so I guess I just want to be clear, although the timeliness of this is incredible with COVID and the fact that we're going to be losing a good portion of our indoor seating capacity. So this will hypothetically replace a good portion of that seating that I lose inside. But for me and for our group, this was much more about creating a unique dining experience. And, you know, again, we think that we haven't received the yurts yet, but we have seen them. And the size that we ordered was a 12-foot diameter, which should be able to seat up to 8 people at a circular table, as you see pictured in one of the 11 Madison Park yurts. And we have curated a menu that will be specifically designed to be executed in a large format, so that we don't have to worry about the integrity of our food and how is it going to travel. And you know, we're going to be walking this outside in sometimes negative, 15-degree weather. So we've designed a menu that will be easily tailored to that style of dining. And to be honest, I've never received so much press for something that I thought was so just sort of run-of-the-mill before in my entire life. And I know that unfortunately, Richard at campingyurts.com is now completely inundated and is trying to get these manufactured as quickly as possible, but I know that he does have a wait. In terms of heating and dealing with the local authorities, we've worked through the Breckenridge Fire Department as well as the Steamboat local authorities to figure out how we can heat them. We have chosen on the manufacturer's recommendation to heat them with a infrared electric heat unit that hangs as a pendant from above from the center of the yurt, which provides ambient light and heat. But it does require us, us amping up our electrical capabilities in our outdoor dining spaces. But again, this is something that we were really excited about, simply just to provide a really unique dining experience for our guests, something that we think is less about kind of the utilitarian need to get more seating and more about creating something different and something special where guests are really looking forward to this experience, rather than being sort of in a situation, well, we can't dine inside, we have to dine outside. So we wanted to make it special, and we're really fortunate to have found these yurts. I think the exterior material is a marine canvas. They are wind rated, they are snow rated, but we will have to have frequent snow removal taking place, especially in the mountain communities. We can get huge snowfalls. But yeah, off the top of my mind, I think that's more or less what we're planning on. And again, we've set up food and beverage minimums for the yurts. We will only be seating them once per night to make sure that we can properly sanitize the spaces in between parties. So in order to do that, we do need to set up a food and beverage minimum for the space. So it'll be one rate during the week and another rate on the weekends. But I will tell you, there has been no shortage of demand for reservations for these spaces. So if you're thinking about doing something like this, I would feel confident that the guests are very interested in having this type of experience. We've been getting just inundated with phone calls for people looking to pre-book these experiences. So hopefully that is helpful.
Can I ask a question? We've got some coming in, but I'd like to just ask, I love that you showed us those images. It makes it so easy to kind of get an idea of what it could feel like in the tents, but what are you using? I suspect that, you know, in the one picture, it showed the nice, cozy, fuzzy seats. I suspect that that's not what you're going to use because of COVID and cleaning. What is your seating going to actually look like? Like what is the inside? Can you kind of describe what you're making, what
Sure.
you're doing
So
to make it feel intimate and cozy?
We will have circular tables, much like they're pictured in those images. We have also ordered a ton of washable Pendleton blankets so that we can launder those overnight. We do have laundry facilities at the restaurant. So we'll be able to wash those overnight in between use. We would love to be able to do the fur jacket concept, but again, not quite certain that that's going to be appropriate yet with COVID. We are asking our customers to dress accordingly. Certainly the inside of the space is not going to be a cozy 70 degrees like it would be in the dining room. It will be much more of a, you know, we hope that we can get them to certainly a comfortable temperature, but it won't be something that you're going to wear a button-down shirt and take off your jacket type experience. The other thing that I wanted to add that I didn't mention while I was talking earlier is that we have utilized an open table experience, which is different than booking an open table restaurant reservation. It gives a much more in-depth overview of what to expect, how to dress. It does require the guest to prepay for that experience. So that's something that we'll be utilizing for the reservation end of it. But yeah, we will, like I said, we have the Pendleton blankets ordered. I'd love to put the fur jackets out there. I don't know that we're gonna be able to do that safely at this time. But yeah.
Great. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start and just ask some questions that have come in here. I think this first one is for Adam. The person asks, are the state's temporary outdoor structure guidelines the baseline for all counties, or will counties have the ability to modify with variances approved by the state?
Yeah, thanks, Sonia. So we are actually no longer doing variance in like sector-wide variances any longer. We're only doing site-specific and variances, and the reason that is because we've instituted this new dial framework, and I can drop that dial dashboard into the chat for everyone if you're interested in looking at it. That the dial has in it created the variances for number of individuals already. So, and then of course, protect our neighbor has only 500% limitations. So counties can of course go and be more restrictive than what we have issued for guidance for outdoor structures, but there won't be any variance from it. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, appreciate that. Next question, when it comes to heating an outdoor or indoor tent space, I've heard propane heaters are not an option in enclosed space. I know that you'd already addressed that a bit, Mike, but is this accurate? And if so, how can we plan on solving the heat issues? So it'd be great to hear if you know of additional heating options that folks can look into.
Yeah, it's definitely a great question.
And let me just add, if you have any idea on price differences, I'm sure people would be interested in to hear just even general guidelines for that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really good question. I'm happy to clarify that. I think I will preface it with every fire department is different. And for the most part, they are trying to work with restaurants and keep everyone in business, but they also want to keep everyone safe. So we work pretty closely with them. In general, we can typically use propane tent heaters. The fire department will require the heater and the propane canisters to be outside the tent, obviously. So there might be some confusion there. And they also need to be a safe distance from any buildings or any tents or any guests in this case. So as long as we follow their restrictions, in most cases, we can typically use propane heaters if we do it safely.
What does what does safe distance mean?
Again, it depends on the fire department. They'll tell us how many feet you need from the tent and how it needs to be secured. So, as an example, all of our heaters have a hose from our heater to the propane canister that's, I believe it's 10 to 15 feet long, so we can position the canister away from the heater. And then in some cases, that heater, or that canister, you know, imagine a 100-pound propane canister, which is typical, is probably, I'd say, 5 feet tall, 12 to 18 inches in diameter. That thing can tip over unless it's secured. So we either put a stake in the ground and strap it to a stake, or we put a big concrete block in the ground and secure it to that block. So if someone bumps into it, it cannot tip over, which could be a safety hazard.
Okay, great, thank you. Here, I'm gonna throw another question at you.
Sure.
The person says, I've already spoken with feral gas and AmeriGas, and it seems that their 100-gallon tanks will only last 6 to 8 hours and are few and far between and in high demand. How does your company expect to help your clients with this shortage to be able to heat their tents from cracking 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Sure.
So there's a couple ways to do this. First off, if you run your heater, depends on the size of the heater, how much fuel you're using, obviously, that's a rough estimate. All of our heaters come with thermostats. So you place a thermostat in the tent, and that thermostat will automatically shut that heater down when it reaches temperature. So yes, if you run these things straight, you will go through, for the most part, a large propane canister in 8 hours. That's typically not the case, at least in Denver. It might be a different story up in the mountains. Another solution is we actually will able to tie multiple canisters together. So once the first canister runs out, the heater will tap into the next canister. This way you're not swapping them out as often. And then we just are working with our customers to give them backup canisters, and we'll show them how to swap out the old canister, hook up the new canisters. In most cases, it's similar to a barbecue grill. You might need like a basic crescent wrench to do that. But this way, once they tap into that second or backup canister, they can give us a call. We can schedule a delivery of a new one, and then they have that next one on standby, so they're not running out in the middle of the night while they're trying to keep their guests warm, in this case. Another option, again, going to totally preface this with consult your local fire department, but some of our heaters actually can run on natural gas, and this could be a better solution for restaurants or buildings that are able to run a hard pipe or a flex line to these heaters. Again, comes back to the fire department, but that could be an option if the fire department allows you to hook these heaters up directly to the building, the natural gas from the building, and also consult a licensed plumber on that as well.
Thank you. Well, this is, I don't know. We may have to get back to something on this next question. I'm going to throw it out to Mike and Adam, but we'll see if you can answer it. It says, hi, Mike is telling us a mushroom heater is not good for unventilated spaces. What makes the tent space safe from COVID-19 if there is insufficient CO2 ventilation? My thought is that if 100 people are exhaling in an insufficiently ventilated tent with walls, that might be equal to or beyond what a mushroom heater could omit.
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you do enclose the space, as Adam kind of touched on earlier, you still want to do your social distancing. So as far as the spread of COVID-19 goes, again, I'm not going to claim to be an expert on that, but it's going to be like dining inside. But this will be a better solution for you versus not having any space or having your guests be extremely cold and uncomfortable. So you will have to practice social distancing and not necessarily treat this as an outdoor space if it is fully enclosed with 3 to 4 walls in some cases. But it will be better than not having any type of space. When it's warm out, sidewalls can be removed from the tents. That will then become an outdoor space, and then you can follow the guidelines around an outdoor space.
I see Adam nodding.
Yeah, I think Mike hit that perfectly. I don't think there's much to add, so yeah.
Okay. This is one for you, Adam. And getting any government official out to inspect our space or ask questions had been a daunting task. Why has the state not allowed any of the employees that work for the inspections departments to be knighted to help with inspections during these times to keep up with demand so that the current inspectors are not so overwhelmed with the backlog of inspections a mile long?
Yeah, thanks for this question. So I made a note, my my boss has been really clear on wanting to make sure we reduce as many barriers as we can for the industry. And I'll take this back. My question might be, how many of these actually happen at a local level? And this is the part where you guys have certainly more expertise than I do. I'm worried that we probably only maybe set the rule and the inspection happens by a local public health agency, and we may not have any say into how that gets done. But it's something I'll take back with our team, and Sonia, maybe we can follow up afterwards.
Great, thank you. And one more while I've got you, Adam. It says, can Adam please confirm that he said individual restaurants can apply for variances to restrictions?
Yeah, so let me clarify that site-specific variance process. So a county is allowed to apply right now to the state for up to 10 variances per 100,000 people for indoor and outdoor event venues. Those spaces or venues have to be at least 30,000 square feet or larger. And you're only allowed to request both outdoor and indoor when a county is in level 1 of the dial, and only outdoor site-specific variances when you are in level 2. If you're in level 3 or higher, no site-specific is granted. So it's not, unless a restaurant is, I guess it would be higher than that 30,000 square foot. I don't know all your operations. You could work with your local public health to submit a site-specific variance, but you have to make sure you're in level 1 or level 2 of the dial, and then for outdoor indoor spaces.
Thank you. One other person asked, what is the guidance on risk of dining in a tent versus inside? Is the tent considered inside from a risk assessment?
So I'll touch on this first. Going back to that document, one of the links I shared earlier, if you're in a tent with 4 walls and a ceiling, or 3 closed walls that are closed and one side's open, or 2 adjacent walls closed and 2 adjacent sides open, we're considering those to be indoor spaces. And so the same, measures that you would take in an indoor, like a regular structured building, are the same that you would have to take in that space. The others other spaces are more outdoor. But yeah, I think still the mask wearing, social distancing, the hand washing, the other guidelines that our health and safety guidelines that we've issued are important. There's still the risk there, but we do think that you can mitigate some of that risk if you are using one of these more outdoor spaces. But maybe the other panelists want to add something here as well.
Yeah, and just to add that, what we're suggesting for restaurants, may have touched on this, is with tents, you can actually take the sidewalls off. We will train the general managers to do that. This way, at least you have some space and you're following those guidelines, and just being able to capitalize on those extra tables as far as a business standpoint goes. But you can create an outdoor indoor space with any tent. So it really depends on your situation, what you're looking to do, and how cold it might be in your given area.
Yeah, I think from our end, we were looking to replace some of the lost indoor seating in the restaurant capacity limits. So if we have to be at 50% capacity, I was just looking to displace. I'm not even remotely stating that this is outdoor dining. This is certainly an indoor dining environment, but it replaces some of the seating capacity that I lost inside due to spacing needs for 6 feet apart.
Thank you. I don't see any additional questions here that have not been answered. I guess I'll just throw it out to the audience here one more time. If you have any additional questions, go ahead and fill it in the Q&A section. Meanwhile, I will throw it out to each of the panelists on any closing thoughts. If there's anything else that you'd like to finish up with. Sorry, real quick, we did just get a question come in. The question is, if a tent or yurt has walls, can the tents be immediately adjacent to each other? In other words, do the tent walls constitute sufficient separation, i.e. count as a separate room?
It's my understanding that they do. I mean, this is marine layer canvas that is specifically for outdoor. Again, we're only going to seat 1 table per night, up to 8 guests. So we will have essentially 32 seats that we can replace on any given evening.
Adam, are you in agreement there?
I think so. I'm going to copy down that question though and ask our team and make sure I get a more official answer.
Thank you. And then what we'll do is we'll forward that out to everybody via our email and give an update when we post this video on our website. So with that, I'll turn it over to the three of you for closing comments. Adam, I've got you up on my screen now, so why don't you start?
Yeah, I mean, like I said at the outset, we want to, my boss has been really clear on wanting to be a good partner with industry, and I think you all are doing all the right things to keep people safe, and we want to try to help as much as we can, and hopefully there's a vaccine or good solution in the coming months that relieves all this pressure that we're all under. But I really appreciate everything. Well, on behalf of my boss and myself, just really appreciate everything you're all doing, and thank you to you, Sonia, and the other panelists for taking this time to talk to us.
Thank you, Mike.
Just want to say thanks for the time. Hopefully this was extremely helpful for everyone, and we are here to help. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to us, see if it makes sense for you, and just kind of help you navigate these uncertain times.
And Phillips, as a restaurateur, I think it'll be helpful to hear if you've got any motivational or final comments that can help the rest of the folks on the call feel like they've got a good option here for getting through the winter.
Yeah, I think, for me, and I'm just speaking for our group, certainly we're blessed to be in the mountain communities right now. I know that the urban counterparts haven't fared so well, so my heart definitely goes out to all the folks in the cities. I would say just continue to focus on the hospitality aspect of what we do. Right now, people are really looking for a place to come together, and I think that's what our industry is all about, is providing opportunity for people to come together and enjoy one another's company and great hospitality and good food. I would just continue to use that as your North Star, and the creative avenues that we can do to get through this winter don't always necessarily need to be so utilitarian. I mean, just think about who we are as an industry and how we can provide our guests with a great gathering space. Some of my restaurants are 6,500 square feet, and that's a lot of space, and some are 2,500 square feet, which is not a lot of space. But we've just adjusted our labor models and our cost of goods and our staffing. So please remember, you can have a business that does $200,000 a year and makes $100,000 in profit, or you can have a business that does $5 million a year and makes $100,000 in profit. So just remember to try to maximize those revenue streams as best as you possibly can.
Thank you. That's great reminder. I do want to let folks know, because one of the questions came in here asking about, you may have seen the design charrette and workshop that we are working on October 19th in conjunction with the state of Colorado, with contractors and architects, landscape architects, local public health officials, and more. That's going to be on October 19th, and we're doing that as a way to ideally come up with some inexpensive, creative concepts that we can share with all of you, just to inspire ideas on things that you may be able to do, creative things that you can do over the winter. But the other part of that is we're trying to identify grant programs. We're also going to be working to try to raise our own money to see if we can get some money to help support restaurants with grants to help pay for some of these additional expenses going out to help you through the winter. But at the very least, we'll be able to provide you with what we know right now. And we've already heard of a number that cities and counties around the state are offering. They can use CARES Act dollars or other funds to help support you through the winter. So look out for more of that soon. If anybody's interested in not only participating in that design charrette workshop, because we are looking for restaurateurs, please email us at info@corestaurant.org. We will also be working, one of the questions here was, is there going to be a resource guide for restaurant designers and architects and landscape architects, et cetera, to let people know if they're looking for some help. Absolutely, that's part of what we're doing, as well as put together resources on tents and heaters and designers that can help you with those spaces. So that is something that we will be putting together. So feel free to reach out to us, either if you're either a designer or you're somebody that's looking for additional resources. We're happy to put that together. The only last question before we go that I see that we haven't answered yet is some people were asking about thoughts on greenhouses as tent spaces, on I think smaller kind of 10 by, I saw one that was, will 10 by 10 walled tents classify as the same as igloos or greenhouses? Can you speak to that a bit? I think Adam or Mike?
Yeah, briefly from my perspective, I would assume so, but I think I would also, pose that question to local officials of the city to see if that's a safe option. In my eyes, the tent material, the vinyl we use, air cannot pass through that material, but where it does attach to the tent, depending on the quality of the tent you have, there can be some air loss or airflow. So it's not a perfect igloo, but it does offer some of the same benefits.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I'll add this to my other questions. I think the only thing I would just ask is, so long as you can get the 6 feet of separation that you're supposed to achieve and maintain, and whether or not you can do that in a space that's, I don't know, 10 by 10. But I don't know that the material or would matter. But I'll add that to my list.
Great, thank you. And as a reminder, we'll continue to update as we get additional information on any of these topics related to outdoor dining. We'll continue to update that on our website, get you more resources, and send those out in our emails. And if you are not getting our emails, we've opened those up to both members and non-members at this time. Just go on to corestaurant.org, click on the Coronavirus Resource Center, and it's just right there to sign up to get information if you're not currently getting it from us. So with that, thank you again to our panelists. This has been extremely helpful. We will be posting this information within 24 hours on our website. If for the audience, if you have additional topics you'd like us to include, please send us that feedback at info@corestaurant.org. And our sole purpose really right now is to help restaurants stay open and especially survive the winter. So we're here to help however we can. Thank you all. And we really appreciate your time. This has been very helpful. Stay safe, everyone.
Thanks.